y'all? Welcome to another video, or should I say greetings to another video. Hey, get it? Today we're diving into the CD collection. We're going to talk about Bruce Springsteen and sometimes the E Street Band. I grew up in New Jersey, of course. You couldn't escape that dude growing up around here. Certainly, the most popular person around here was like, if you weren't a fan of his, it was like blasphemy, although I wasn't really a fan of his growing up. When I remember in high school, you'd always hear the stories of him, popping up in a club, just jumping on stage with whoever was playing, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember working at a movie theater, I don't know when this was, and this girl I was working with was a big Bruce Springsteen fan. And back then it was almost like this thing where like he'd show up at a club or whatever and word would spread, and I remember her getting a call when we were working, and like her friend was like, hey, Bruce Springsteen just showed up or whatever, and then she was like, I gotta get out of here, to go to the club. It was like that. Now he still does that. Now you still run it. I've seen him in bars and stuff like that. It's not like you see him everywhere you go, but it's not, it just feels like it's almost like, second nature to kind of sooner or later be like, oh, he's over there having a beer with somebody, whatever. But I did see him jump up. I went and saw Mike Ness from Social D at the Stone Pony a handful of years ago, maybe, I don't know, 2007 or 8 or something like that. And Springsteen was in the club. I was like, oh, Bruce is over there. And we call him Bruce. And, and you wonder, like, is he going to get on stage? And ultimately he did, But it was kind of, so it was cool to have, like, it was almost like, being able to, that was the first time I'd ever seen him in a club where he got on stage with the band playing. So it was kind of cool to be like, oh, I got one of those stories now, But anyways, I wasn't really a fan of his growing up. It wasn't until many years later, like later 80s, that I kind of started getting into his music and kind of, getting it, I think it was like a girl that I was seeing at the time. Like these things sometimes happen. Like that kind of was the influence. Like she was a fan of Springsteen, and then, I was hearing it a little bit more than I had in the past, and I just kind of started, kind of getting into it, and maybe went out and picked up like a CD. I think I went out and picked up, believe it or not, I think I went out and picked up Tunnel of Love. I think that was the one. It was that or Born to Run. And I started kind of, like I said, appreciating it more, and then kind of getting a little more into it in like the early 90s, picking up, some of his other records. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at these CDs I have. Nothing special, nothing rare, but just this is what's in my collection. And what I was alluding to earlier on, here's his first record, Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey. I made a short film about Asbury Park. If you want to see it, I'll put the link below. Because in the late 80s, 90s, it kind of fell on hard times. It's kind of been rebirthed since, but kind of give you a little taste of what that city, the kind of down years for that city. But, really good introduction for him out of the gate. Blinded by the Light, Growing Up, For You, Spirit in the Night. Just a really good collection of songs. No surprise that, he kind of just was kind of a hit right out of the gate. It's a really solid debut. Then we get the Wild, the Innocent, and the E Street Shuffle. Sorry. Now you get a little bit more of focus on the band, his backing band, the E Street Band, kind of getting some credit and everything. And another good collection of tunes on here. I'm not as familiar with this whole record. Rosalita is on here. That's obviously like the big one, 4th of July, Asbury Park. But not as familiar with this record. I think when I started getting into him in the early 90s, I think I just like started just picking up like all of them and just got a bunch of them at once, and I don't know that I delved too deep into them, like even to this day maybe that I should have. Then, like I said, this may have been the first CD of his I picked up, but I think it was Tunnel of Love. But then we get, of course, his big one, Born to Run, the classic. This is a phenomenal album. Just about every tune on here I really, really dig. Thunder Road, 10th Ave, Freeze Out, Backstreet's Born to Run, the title tune, She's the One, Jungle Land. Yeah, I mean, I think this one kind of, because I think this is when he was like famously was on like the cover of Time and Newsweek like the same week, and that was just like unheard of and blah, 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 blah. But this is the one I think that's kind of, he was successful, but this one kind of put him to that next level as far as like stardom or whatever. And just recently, I found this at a Goodwill. I did a video where I mentioned I found this at a Goodwill for like $4. This is like the 30th anniversary set. And I still haven't opened it. I still am debating if I should open it or not. I think I thought originally I was going to give it to my buddy Wiegert, and he already had it, which was no surprise because he's a big Bruce Springsteen fan. And then I was thinking maybe I would sell it on eBay, but I saw, even though it's unopened and everything, I saw that there were a lot of those on sale and not really asking too much money. So I just kind of held on to it, just debating what to do with it. But anyways, back to the catalog. Then we get Darkness on the Edge of Town. Another, good collection of tunes on here. Badlands, Racing in the Street, Prove It All Night, Darkness on the Edge of Town. I know there's like another version of this record. I remember when this was like the anniversary of this. I think he's like kind of, for a lot of these albums, he's like kind of done these like reissued like anniversary sets, like that Born to Run one. And I remember when this had its anniversary, must have been 2008. I remember they made like a real big deal about this. There was like a documentary that maybe was on TV or something, and he put out like another set, and like a whole other album I think was attached to it. I don't know if it was one of those things where he like recorded a record and then scrapped it and then redid it. I don't know. It was something like that, some story. You Springsteen fans, I'm sure, know what the deal is. But yeah, it's not a bad, a handful of these tracks I really like. Some of them I'm not super familiar with. And here's my take. I've only seen them like live, like the band live officially once, and they had that reunion tour in 1999. I went and saw them at the Meadowlands. They did they did some crazy amount of shows up there, and I went and saw that. It was pretty good. Then he puts out in 1982 disc set The River. Really good record. I really like this one. Ties That Bind Sherry Darling, Jackson Cage, Two Hearts, the big single Hungry Heart, which is funny. You Springsteen fans, this is not going to come as you all are aware of this already, but it's funny to read the history that song, he had written that song for the Ramones, because you just can't, I just can't, like, I love the Ramones, but I just can't wrap my head around thinking of that song as a Ramones song done by the Ramones. It just doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't fit, but it would have been interesting. Out in the Street, Crush on You, I Want to Marry You, Point Blank, Cadillac Ranch, Wreck on the Highway. Yeah, I mean, this is an awesome record. I personally, it's a really good record. I probably could whittle this down to just one disc, perfect, like, 11 songs or something like that. Just perfect album, every song phenomenal. But then, then my collection jumps to his other big one, 1984's Born in the USA. I didn't own this. This is probably the last of his CDs I bought. I picked this up at Spin Me Round for $1 maybe a couple of years ago. And I just was like looking through their dollar bin, and it was in there, and I was just like, $1, whatever. But, it's, like a lot of those mid-'80s albums that came out, they released almost every song as a single, and they were just played to death on radio and MTV and everything, that you just kind of like, this record, there's these songs, you can't deny they're really, really good songs, but you just like have heard them so many times that it's like, I couldn't tell you when or if I would ever reach for this record to listen to it. I mean, Born in the USA, Cover Me, I'm on Fire, I'm Going Down, Glory Days, Dancing in the Dark, My Hometown. Like all those were released as singles and hit the top 40, you know, if and higher. You know, it's just crazy, you know. And the tracks that weren't released as singles, you know, I'm kind of lukewarm on. They're okay. But yeah, just you know, I mean, it is what it is. It's a classic album, whether you ever need to hear it again or not. And then he releases, which was a really big deal at the time. I remember it being the first time I ever heard of like our local record store, one of them at the time, Jack's in Red Bank, right down the street here, opening at like midnight to you know, for the release of this album. And it was the live 1975 to 1985 collection. This was just such a big deal. I think it was released in like the fall for like the Christmas season. So it was just like, I just remember seeing like news reports on TV of people like running to get this album. It was just insane, you know. But I grabbed this in the 90s sometime, probably from like Columbia House, one of those record clubs or whatever. The original one came in like an album-sized box with a big booklet and everything. This is the kind of, it's got all the discs and the tracks on it and everything, but this is just kind of like the more compact version of that, because of one of those old fat CD cases, 3 discs there. The artwork's kind of done up like a old ticket stub, which is kind of neat. And it's got the booklet here with, I guess these are all the lyrics. Yeah, just the lyrics. I thought maybe it would have like more like liner notes, but there's some little short ones at the front there, but it's all like just the lyrics. Would have been cooler to have more like written stuff, but yeah, so that's the live record, the live collection. I think he's put out a bunch more live records since then, obviously, but that was a big deal when it came out. Then, like I was mentioning earlier, I think this might be the first one. It's one of the first 2 CDs because I picked up. This is Tunnel of Love. This comes out, you know, so the anticipation after Born in the USA and then the live record, just these huge sellers. And then it's, you know, the anticipation for his follow-up is this. And I think it disappointed some people. It wasn't Born in the USA. It wasn't chock full of all these like straight ahead classic catchy rock songs that would be all over the radio. It was a little more introspective, a little more mellow. I think, if I remember correctly, I don't follow his life all that closely, but I think he was kind of going through, I don't know if he was going through a divorce or if it was just his like marriage was messy at that time and you know, kind of like on its last legs. So I think that's where a lot of this, the tone of this record kind of comes from. But I remember the single Tunnel of Love. I think the first single was Brilliant Disguise. And then Tunnel of Love, I guess, was the second single, perhaps. And I really liked that song. I think that's the one that kind of piqued my interest to want to maybe go out and buy the record. Yeah, but I remember kind of liking this record, you know, not bad. Then that was kind of it. Then I picked up, he did the old like Guns N' Roses deal in 92, where he put out 2 records at the same time. I picked these up years after the fact, maybe in like 90. I probably picked these up in like 97 or 98 or something like that. So we got Lucky Town, which I think Better Days was maybe released as a single. Local Heroes pretty good. If I Should Fall Behind's not bad. Leap of Faith is really good. I like that song a lot. And then he releases, at the same time, he releases Human Touch. And Human Touch, the single, was the first single out of the gate. And that was pretty successful song. Yeah, 57 Channels was not bad. Roll of the Dice, All or Nothing at All, I remember kind of liking. But like probably everybody says about these records, you know, you could easily combine these down to like one release. Like I would, it probably, in my opinion, it probably should have just been one release and just kind of picked the best tunes between the two. You could have made like a really good solid record of 10 tracks combining these, and then had a whole bunch of like leftovers for B-sides and stuff like that. I don't know really what the thought process is, why he released the two of them simultaneously. I don't know the story behind it, but and then the last one I have is The Rising. This, I remember picking this up when it came out. This, I really liked the title track. This was obviously released not, after 9/11 happened, and I think the album kind of, is kind of feeding off of that. But yeah, I remember thinking this was a pretty good record. Waiting on a Sunny Day. What else on here? Mary's Place was pretty good. My City of Ruins, which I think a lot of people, connect to New York City, obviously, but I think it was more about Asbury Park, like I was mentioning in my short film about how the city had kind of fallen on hard times. I think that song was about Asbury Park. His first studio album with the E Street Band since Born in the USA. That's the other thing I forgot to mention. After Born in the USA, the live record comes out or whatever, but he kind of disbanded the E Street Band, which I don't think a lot of people were too thrilled with. Even though he had made records without them, I think, through the years, but he like really kind of like officially disbanded the record and went off. Like he had a whole new group of people for those Lucky Town and Human Touch records. I don't know. I think people were kind of a little disappointed with that. But I think he reconvened earlier than this. I mean, obviously, I went and saw him in '99 before this came out, because I think he did like a greatest hits package where he had a couple of new songs on there that he recorded with the band. But yeah, not a bad record. He's released tons after that, and there's a few even earlier ones that I don't have. But I'm never that big of a fan of his. And there's a couple of songs here and there on his later records that I thought were okay, but nothing that made me want to pick up the record, But yeah, that's the Springsteen collection. I'm legally obligated to do a Springsteen video being from New Jersey. It's the law. I'd get arrested if I didn't do this. But anyways, let me know what you think of Bruce Springsteen. Let me know about your collections, if you've seen them live, all that fun stuff. And yeah, be cool to hear. Thanks for watching, and see you another time later on.